Hey, YouTube and Instagram, it's Gordon Miller. Welcome to Live at 5. Well, actually, Live at 5:10. So I hope everybody's doing well today. Let me adjust my height here. And let's see. Okay. Today, we are going to talk about the most important skills and life lessons that you can learn from playing the game of chess. And so it was a recent Quora answer of mine. It's become very popular. It's doing pretty well overall. I answered it back on June 1st. And so I thought I'd go through it. And I think what I'm going to do is I've got like 11,000 answers. I could go like live every day, multiple times a day and still not cover all my answers. So I think what I'll do is for each of the Live at 5, I'll prepare one of the answers ahead of time. We'll review some of those things and kind of go from there. But I'm here in my kitchen, so it's a little bit of more of an echo here, I see. But it's raining outside. I prefer to be out on the deck like I was yesterday when I went live briefly, just to say hi. But anyway, so let's get to it. The question was, what are the most useful skills that chess has taught you? And, it's one of those kind of things where I forget what time in the morning it was when I woke up and was kind of perusing the various questions. I answer whatever comes across my feed. So I don't control what the feed is, so I don't really control the answers. And if it looks like an interesting question, I'll answer it. So, but I got started and I ended up with a dozen things, which I think are pretty interesting. And now I learned to play chess when I was in college, and my father learned to play chess somewhere along the way. I'm not sure where. And so I played him a few times, and when I had kids, I decided that I was going to, teach them how to play chess. And my oldest two were actually on the chess team at school, and they did really well. And a significant percentage of our neighborhood here, where we are, is people from the Indian subcontinent. So we have, Indians make up about 2.4% of the U.S. population, yet our neighborhood here is made up of about 24% people from the Indian subcontinent. So for all you people that still think I hate people from India, it's not true. So, if that were the case, I would hate 2/3 of the people that live here in our neighborhood. But and there's a lot of reasons why this neighborhood's really attractive. It has high pricing for the value and things like that. But because of that, the schools are, as much as the few schools that the kids were at the time, are predominantly, I would say, almost half were Indian in terms of nationality, and and the rest were made up of whites, Asians, and African Americans. So it's really kind of an interesting mix. And of course, I think almost all the Indian kids played chess. It was and played at a ridiculously high levels. So it was good to see that. So Karshan, I'm gonna. If you still are around later when I am done going through the answer, then I'm happy to bring you on live if you want. But I'm going to go through the 12 different skills that I think chess offers, and it's interesting how they apply to life and business and things like that. So the first one is the importance of strategy, and it's important that you have a way to be able to formulate a framework for what success looks like in your mind and be able to execute against it. And so I think that's an interesting perspective. Whether that's about winning friends or about winning business opportunities or about just winning in life in general, I think that's important. You have to be able to formulate a strategy. And you have to be able to get from point A to point B, and you kind of have to know how that process is going to play out. And that strategy is really kind of important. Now, it's interesting. I am probably the worst guy to play against because I play in sort of random strategy mode, or sort of random, play random. And so when I can detect a pattern that somebody else is using, I know what they expect me to do next. And so I do anything but that. And then that forces them to pick another strategy. And then when I realize what that strategy is, I do something antithetical to that, making them switch strategies. And so what I actually do is I actually wear the opponent down to where they're not capable of switching to another strategy because they don't have enough of the pieces left to be able to implement the strategy. Then we play heads up chess. And if sorry, if they are good at switching strategies, that's fine. Eventually, they'll switch to the wrong strategy, or they'll make a mistake. They'll move a piece out of sequence and stuff like that, and I'll catch it, and then I'll execute my strategy, which is then to take advantage of their mistake, and then and do that. So it's really kind of an interesting thing. And I had a good friend of mine. Ryan Chen had mentioned that he is plays at the masters level, and my best friend from high school, his father was, I believe, the former Yugoslavian chess grandmaster, and so he taught me a lot of opening moves and salvos and techniques and stuff like that. But it really is a matter of confusing people sometimes in chess, and then have them make a mistake and then execute against the mistake, and continue to do that. Once they know they've messed up, it kind of mentally messes with their game, and so it's an opportunity to again continue to take advantage of them making mistakes. So okay, so the second one is the importance of execution. That goes along with the strategy. So it's great to know what the strategy is, but if you don't have the proper execution to go with it, then you're not going to be able to be successful, because you're not going to be able to, get you've got the right strategy, doggone, that was the right strategy, but I moved the wrong piece. I ended up losing this piece, but I need it, and I can't do this strategy now. And then some people will often be out of strategy. So they won't have a really, a fallback position, or they only know 2 or 3 strategies. And so if I realize that somebody's out of strategies, they now don't know what to do, then it increases the odds, and it increases the potential benefit of being able to win. But a lot of times I see what people are trying to do, and then they make a mistake, they move a piece out of sequence, and then they try to catch up or make up for that mistake, and things like that. So but execution is really important. And just like in life and business, I mean, when you have a business plan, that's your strategy from number one. And so then it's about your execution against that business strategy. So if you have your business plan and you're trying to work on your business, this is what most investors are looking at, is they're looking at whether or not they think you're the one that can actually execute against a strategy, any strategy. And the great thing about the business plan is that for most people, it's just complete bullshit. I mean, most people make up their business plans. It has no real basis in any kind of real analysis. Now, I tell you what, I had a call this morning with a gentleman from the UK who has an amazing analytical financial analysis of his opportunity. And I was just stunned. I don't think I've ever seen somebody who came to a call with like 8 tabs of financial analysis, and all of it ridiculously complete, and all of it, very reasonable, and things like that. So it was something that I think was really kind of a first for me. And the call went really well. We're going to continue to work on bringing his product to market. And we had a couple of really key suggestions for him, and that really will help streamline his production, save him in packaging, save him in labor, a bunch of things like that. So we got his cost down from the item's supposed to sell for $100 a piece, or actually 100 pounds a piece, 99 pounds, about $125. And we got his price when we started the call was going to be about $45 a piece. And so we got his cost down to about $16 a piece by doing the strategy the way that that I wanted to do that. So And we also reduced the complexity of his production, and we also simplified his packaging and a bunch of other stuff like that. So overall, his profits will end up going from what he thought it was going to be somewhere around 330,000. His profits will now be somewhere around 550,000 pounds, and which is an amazing amount of money on what he's doing. So, so with a going-in price of somewhere around 40,000 pounds, he should be able to generate somewhere around 550, about $1.6 million or 1.6 million pounds, and then somewhere around 500 or 600,000 pounds of that is profit. So, pretty good, about $725,000 worth of profit. So basically doubled his profit on one phone call and streamlined his manufacturing and things like that. So it's really been great. So, but that's the kind of stuff that happens on these calls. We look at your strategy, we talk about alternate strategies, and we look at what your execution plan is, and then we talk about what's a better way to potentially have your execution go better. And so I always enjoy those kind of calls. So the third skill that I learned was the importance of adapting. So, if you lose a piece and it's part of your strategy, you need to now adapt a new strategy, and the ability to kind of shift your mode of thinking. It's like, man, I really needed that piece. That's no different than, a business strategy where it's like, I really needed that partner, or I needed that account, or I needed that whatever. And, it didn't work out that way. So then you have to figure out, okay, well, so what is my opportunity to do next, based on all that. So, so let's see. Number 4 is the importance of patience. So the one thing that I've seen is people are in a real rush, like they're playing chess on the time clock, and most people aren't. I don't mind playing on the clock, but the important thing is just to be patient. Have a strategy. Let the strategy play out. A lot of people are, they launch their website and they think that they're going to get 100 sales a day average, and they get 0 sales the first day and 0 sales the second day, and they're like, oh God, and so you have to, in a lot of these things, you have to kind of let the strategy work. You have to let people see the ads, you have to let people consider it. And if it's really not working over a period of time, then you can adjust the strategy. But, the average opportunity takes between 12 and 18 months minimum for most of these things to really kind of work out on business opportunities. And, chess strategies can take half a game to play out. And then you position yourself in the final round of the game to really kind of take advantage of the strategy that you've been waiting to implement the whole time. So what am I basically trying to explain in this video? I'm talking about, well, if you were here when I started, like the title says, I know, that's okay, Deeksha. I'm talking about the lessons learned from chess and how they apply to life and business. It was a Quora answer of mine back on June 1st, and I'm simply going through and explaining the answer and elaborating more on some of that. So in terms of the next one, number 5 is the importance of figuring out your opponent's plan and messing them up. And we talked about that a little bit earlier in the strategy and the execution and things like that. The idea here in most of the, like when you're dealing in business, we're talking about competitors that are out there. And so one of the things that you want to do when you're talking about messing up somebody's strategy, that's where disruptive technologies really kind of come into play. And so the great thing about disruption is that you completely invalidate somebody else's model. And it's not even just a matter that they have to then compete on price or they have to compete on quality and things like that. It's a matter of being able to change the entire game. And I'll give you an example. Deeksha, I'm live at 5 every day, or every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 Eastern. Okay? So anyway, so by having a disruptive technology or a disruptive solution in business, you get to change the whole way the game is. And so I'll give you an example. We were working on one solution where they literally had an industry where the cost of whatever they were providing, it doesn't really matter what it was, the cost of the solution was hang on a second. All right. Too many comments from questions from somebody will get you blocked. So it just loses my train of thought. So anyway, um, the the idea of disruptive technologies, in this case, they were taking a look at providing a service for free, and they had found an alternate business model that financed the opportunity, and customers were used to paying between $100 and $1,000 for a similar service. And these services were very popular. These guys had figured out another way to make money by, basically controlling the demand through, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of users. And they had a great model. I mean, it was really, it's like, wow, you're really going to go out there and run up against people that charge $100 a year or $100 a month, which does the $1,000 a year type thing. You got people out there that you're literally going to crush their model because that's the only way they know how to make money. Their platform really isn't geared to make money any other way. So, it just is one of those kind of things where it's like, all right, well, that's a real game changer. And so, when you introduce really disruptive technologies like that, really disruptive platforms, you create an opportunity to be able to really have an advantage that it's difficult for others to be able to get around. All right, number 6, the importance of outwitting your opponent. So, again, like I said, where I like to see my opponent switch strategies, and I like to see forcing them out of their comfort zone and having them do things that they don't normally like to do, or they're not really comfortable in. People like to settle into their strategy. They like to think their strategy is working. And don't worry about it in YouTube. I was just throwing somebody out of Instagram who was constantly pelting me with questions that are irrelevant. I appreciate you tuning in. You can listen. If you're not interested, you're going to, ask a bunch of useless questions like, who the hell am I and what the hell am I talking about? Then fine. I mean, just listen and enjoy. But if you're going to continue to pelt me with questions, then, So anyway, the idea of being able to match wits with somebody in chess, determining whether you're smarter than they are and things like that. A lot of people, think that life is like a game of checkers and, things like that. You just keep hopping from one opportunity to another. And unfortunately, life is really more like a game of chess. I mean, there's strategies to it. People have, the game has its ups and downs and its ebbs and flows and things like that. So I think you have to be able to go with that. I mean, especially if you're going to own your own business. I think that's the biggest thing that entrepreneurs really aren't sort of emotionally ready for, is the toll that it takes on the ups and downs. I mean, there are great years and there are some bad years for people, and it goes, in and out and up and down and things like that. So you got to be ready to take the bad with the good. But when you're matching wits with somebody and trying to see whether your strategy is better than theirs, whether that's somebody else in business and you have a competing product or a competitor that has a product and you're trying to see if you can dominate that, there's nothing better than being able to sort of outwit your opponent and be able to win. And so that's great. All right, number 7 is the importance of seemingly insignificant pieces. And so I've done this before where I will actually sacrifice all of my highest ranking pieces first. And what that does is typically it wipes out all the lower ranking pieces that for my opponent, or he is forced to sacrifice 2 or 3 of his high ranking pieces. And because he's all excited because all of a sudden my rooks and my bishops and my knights are all up for grabs. And I have a king, a queen, and most of my pawns left. And so, but what they're not paying attention to is the fact that now I've created a difficult defense, or an offense that has a great defense capability, where I'm now pinning most of his pieces in. that he can't move a majority of his highly valuable pieces now because my pawns are sitting there. And there's nothing more humiliating for somebody than to have two or three of their high-ranking pieces taken next by a bunch of pawns. And so that tends to pretty much end their ability to play the game. So, anyway, so what's next here? Number 7. Number 7 was the importance of seemingly insignificant pieces. Number 8, the importance of understanding working within your limitations. So, it's one of the ones that I really love. I mean, of all the things that I've seen that chess gives you, if you lose a couple pieces, and you got to kind of regroup and restructure what your attack is going to be like, and things like that, then that's great. It's winning is about being able to roll with the punches, deal with the losses, enjoy the victories piece by piece, and then piece together your strategy in those kind of opportunities. And so I think that's one of the things. Obviously, each piece has its own limitations. Rooks can only move horizontal and vertically, and bishops can move diagonally, and knights can only move in the configuration they can move, and so on. So what you have is you have an opportunity you have to work within those constraints. And I think that working within highly constrained situations in life and business is a good example of what to do. And being able to do that determines largely whether or not you're going to be successful in life and business as well. All right, so number 9, the importance of sacrificing key pieces. And this kind of goes back to the strategy I was talking about before, where I actually don't mind. I've even brought my queen out and wreaked havoc with a whole line of pawns and things like that, and just wipe out the entire front row for my opponent, driving them nuts at the same time. And but I don't mind losing a key piece as long as there's a strategic advantage to it. And one of the examples I gave is that I've had great people that have worked with me or for me over the years, and I've had people that have been amazing contributors to various projects, but at some point, some people become a liability, and so I've had an opportunity to have to have that discussion with some people. And as much as you like somebody, sometimes sacrificing, somebody that you like, that's good, that could be an asset, further along in the game of life or the game of business, then unfortunately, sometimes you have to sacrifice that person, and in order to get to where you need to be ultimately. And that, sometimes that's a matter of, realizing that, look, you're not on the same page relationship wise. And so if it's your interpersonal relationships, or you're not going to marry this person, that person doesn't want to marry you, then why waste a bunch of time in the relationship? I mean, all you're doing is keeping yourself from finding the person that you're ultimately supposed to be with anyway. So, so I think the lesson is aptly applied to both life and business. So, let's see. Number 10, the importance of always leaving yourself one more move. So the good thing about chess is that as long as you have at least one more move and you're not in check or checkmate, the game goes on. And so part of it is a matter, whether it's in life or in business, the same is true. So, if it's a relationship, issue, then, giving yourself the opportunity to either continue with the relationship or to just come to the reality that that relationship really isn't a long-term winning strategy, and kind of moving to something else. Or if it's a business opportunity and you're talking about, well, always leave yourself enough room, whether that's, cash reserves, or the opportunity and access for credit, or whether that's something, leave yourself some defensible position so that you have an opportunity to be able to continue to win and continue to play. I mean, you can't win if you can't play, and you got to be able to stay in the game. And so make sure that you give yourself some the ability to continue. All right. So let's see. Um, Number 11, the importance of knowing when to give up. So if you do find yourself in a draw or a withdraw situation, sometimes you just have to kind of give up on what that opportunity is like. And just like in chess, if you really don't have any more moves, then okay, then you don't have any more moves. There really isn't anything else you can do. But in terms of life and in business, if you were working this company opportunity, this entrepreneurial opportunity for 2, 3 years, and you're not making a profit, you're not really, it's taking all your time and all your money and things like that. It's a good chance it may not actually work out for you. I mean, I've also seen people give up way too soon where, they called it quits after a year. And if they just hung in there like 18 months or 2 years, it would really have taken off. They were doing the right thing, and I need to shave. Thanks. I appreciate that. No watching the video in 4K. So I shaved a couple of days ago. So anyway, knowing when to give up on an opportunity, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who brag about the number of failed businesses they've been a part of, which I've always thought is a little crazy. I don't really think bragging about your failures is necessarily the best way to approach a new opportunity. I had guys that when I was in the angel group here at the New Dominion Angels, they were, one guy was like, I've had 6 failed businesses over the last 8 years. I'm like, holy fuck. Did you have any that worked out? And he's like, yeah, one worked out and kind of broke even. And then I got this one. I'm like, oh boy. Well, your odds aren't really all that great. So, wow. All right. So, 8 projects in 8 years, and you got the one you're trying to fund now, and only one of the other 6 or so, ever made any money. So, I don't know. I mean, but in some cases, some of those people are learning, and they're growing, and they're creating new opportunities, and so it can be. But typically, if somebody's bragging about how many failures they've had, there's probably a reason for the failure, and if they look real hard and they're honest about it, it's probably because of them. And so, who knows? The other one is the last item on my Quora answer. We're talking about the chess and the useful skills that were learned at chess and what it's taught me. And my June 1st Quora answer. It's on my space, The Truth Unfiltered in Quora. Number 12 is the importance of genuine victory. And I mean genuine victory because I've had people tell me it's like, I let my kids win. And I was like, why the hell would you do that? Why would you ever let them win? Fuck that. And so like, oh, I don't want them to feel bad. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, that's, making them feel better by faking losing, that's just not, that's not good. So, I mean, my kids played me over and over and over again until I screwed up or until they got better, whichever one. My kids still remember what it was like to beat me at chess. And, I think my oldest son played me like multiple times a week, for 4 years. And so, I mean, we must have played 100 matches of chess, maybe 200. And lost, bam. Finally won. And it was the greatest feeling. I admit, I screwed up. And he did ask, he goes, did you make that mistake on purpose? And I go, no, I didn't. I just didn't see, it was a long diagonal path, lots of other pieces in the way. And I just absolutely missed it. And I just wasn't thinking about it that way. I thought that there was a piece blocking. So he had moved his piece that was blocking out in the last run. And it seemed I didn't catch the implication of that. And I fell right into his trap. It was great. I mean, it was just beautiful. So, but I mean, the joy that the kids got when they did finally beat me in chess was something that they remember to this day. Now, this is probably 10 years or more ago. And I think that that's the best thing you can give your kids is the genuine sense of victory and things like that. I mean, it's and the great thing is too, and the same thing works in relationships when you ultimately find the right person. And I think that it's one of those things too that when I met my wife 22 years ago, I felt that exact same way. I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I like hit the jackpot after, a number of, really horrible relationships and 10 years of, being with the wrong people and, things like that. So I was, it was one of those great things where I was like, my God, I can't believe I finally won. And it feels great to win. And in business, when we won our first multi-million dollar contract and, off of a $10,000 IV&V, independent verification and validation effort, and then that turned into a, $1 million a year opportunity over 5 years. So, it was great. I mean, it was just one of those kind of amazing things that, you just don't really even think about. So it was great. But genuine victory is something that everybody should know the feeling of, and chess is a great way to do that. I mean, it is it's awesome. So let's see here. So that's my answer. So we're 31 minutes in here, and so now if anybody has any questions or anything, if somebody's still there that wants to go live, I'm happy to go live. And let's see. All right. All right, bringing somebody else on live here.
Hey, Gordon.
Hey.
This is Srinivas. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. So it was really nice hearing these 12 points that you can glean from chess and apply to work in business. So it's really nice. Any does the show Shark Tank, for example, is that pretty good too for getting some tips about businesses like good sales pitch and being prepared with numbers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. For some reason, I'm not seeing your video, so I don't know what happened, if it's just not connecting or something. But I can hear you just fine. So, so there are a couple of really good lessons that I think Shark Tank can provide. And I am also a huge Dragon's Den fan, which was one of the original UK or Australia versions of the show, and then there was another one as well, that there's an international version of Shark Tank as well. I think it's all owned by the same group and things like that. So I watch them all because I like to see the questions that the investors ask, and I like to see how people handle the answers. But the number one thing I think it comes down to is I guess there's probably like five things. So the five things that I think that Shark Tank can really teach you about is, one is about valuation. That's what you'll see Kevin O'Leary talking about more than anything. I hate the valuation. I can't get to where you are on this valuation. And I think it's important to have realistic expectations. I mean, clearly the sharks bring a lot of value. And I've seen people that priced the opportunity perfect, and the feedback is, wow. I mean, they gave them exactly what they wanted. And so, it's one of those kind of things where, it typically is going to be around 15 to 25% or more for somewhere in the six figures. So it's either 100,000 to 250,000, maybe 300,000. And typically, if you were doing a deal like that in the real world, an angel investment deal is typically between 100 and 250,000, and it's typically done for between 15 and 25%, depending on what it is, and other things. I mean, the multiple rounds of deals that I was involved in the angel investor groups that I was a part of, they typically invested about 250,000 per round, and they had done as many as two rounds. They had 10,000 per investor, And so they had about 25 people in on each round. And that way the risk was spread pretty much across everybody. Of course, the return was spread too. I mean, somebody puts in 10 and they're lucky to get 20 or 30 back. Because, at least the strategy for that group was, get in at the end of the deal, get out in the next round and get bought out. And they were happy with a 2x or 3x return. And that's a good strategy, I guess, if that's what your goal is. But I mean, some of the stuff that they sold that was doing well, if they had hung on to it, that 10,000 would have come back as 100,000 or 200,000. And but I think, valuation is, I think, the number one thing that Shark Tank really stresses or emphasizes that I think is really important. And then the other thing is, I think that the charisma or whatever of the people that are running the show. So here, hang on a second. Oh, it looks like I lost you. Here, I'll bring you back in. Hey, there we go. We got you now.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for answering that question.
Yeah. So, I mean, valuation is probably the number one thing. I think the quality and character of the person that of the entrepreneur itself is a key factor as well. So I think that people tend to evaluate or judge whether or not somebody's going to be a good fit for them. The people that do better on the show, they don't freeze. They don't, they've got their answers. They're not mean or arrogant or stupid or whatever. They just, they just answer the questions and stuff. They do pretty well. So I'm still having trouble with your video, but I can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. And I can see you.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I can hear you too, but I still keep getting the little spinning circle on your video. So, but why is the other guy's face so blurry? I know I think it's just the lighting on the video.
Just give me a second.
Nah, because the video is not showing up.
Is it a little better or something right now? Or
No.
just give me.
No. The video doesn't show up. It's all good. Did you have another question?
So these are really great strategies that you got from chess that you can apply to your business world. And is there any other sport that you think also is pretty good that way, like maybe football or soccer or something where teamwork is important?
Yeah, of course. I think that's exactly right. I mean, I'm a huge American football fan. My youngest son loves international football or soccer, and so I think that both of them have really key lessons to learn. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Now your video's caught up. Excellent. Thanks. So yeah, I think that the judging from so let's do the soccer analogy just because it's the one I'm most familiar with. So my son is a forward, usually plays right forward, and sometimes plays left forward, and is a striker. So he's typically the one who's either setting up to score or passing the optimum position for somebody else who's the other forward to score. And so the great thing about the life lessons and the business lessons is teamwork, but also the importance of coaching, because I've seen really great coaches come in and it's a matter of spotting talent and putting those people in the right places and then letting them do what they're best at. And I think when you're owning your own business and it's your job as the CEO of the company, it's your job to be able to recognize where those people should be and what they should be doing. And if you have them in the wrong place, in one of the books, I forget which book it is. I think maybe it's Malcolm Gladwell's book, but he talks about the right people in the right seats on the bus. When you have people that are part of an integrated team, and you pick the right people and you put them in the right position, you let them do what they're good at, even if it's a position they don't like. I mean, I've seen people where it's like, look, we want you to play goalie. It's like, God, I hate playing goalie. Or, I want you to play defense. And I hate playing defense. I like to shoot the ball. Well, you know what? You suck at shooting the ball. So, you're not going to, but, you're great at defense. And so the great thing about that is that if, that most kids don't understand is that if you have some people who are great at defense, the other team can't score. And so if you have, people that would normally be great at scoring, which is great, but they're not that great, and there are other people who are better, there's an opportunity that, to be able to figure out, well, okay, well, these people, if you put them on defense, the opposing team can only score like half of what they would normally score. And that's great. That keeps the scores low and your ability to shoot and score higher. And that's how people win. And so, I think that most teams that don't win, I do not think it's the fault of the kids. I think it's the fault of the coaches. I think the coaches don't recognize the talent. They don't put the kids in the right position, and they don't look at the numbers, and they don't look at the reality of the team. They just like, okay, what position do you want to play? I want to play center. Okay, great. Well, go play that position. Yay. Come on. So I think that's why most businesses fail is, if when you have one or two people, like the two original founding partners, I've seen businesses grow in terms of opportunities, but the problem is that they're horrible at picking good people, or good people don't really exist, and then they don't let those people, the good people, do what they're really good at, and then the company doesn't do very well, and they end up failing because of that. And I think that's a very real concern.
Amazing. That's really nice to that's really nice to hear.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I appreciate you asking the question. Yeah.
Right.
Any other thoughts?
What are some of the current projects you're doing? What is it you're up to currently? What are the kind of work you're doing currently, or what are the companies you're investing in currently?
Yeah, most of the stuff that I'm working on now is international stuff. So until international travel is reinstated for the U.S., it's difficult to kind of complete some of that stuff. So in March, I was working on efforts in Singapore and Jakarta, and efforts over in London and other parts of the UK, and we have some other opportunities elsewhere. And so we're just, unfortunately, until I can travel again and come back to the United States, then it's pretty difficult for me to work on that. I mean, we're still working on the actual solutions, and we're still working on our relationships, and we're still working on other stuff like that. But we made the shift 2 or 3 years ago to focus more on international projects, and ever since then, it's been going great, and we were building up to a major rollout of several different opportunities April this year. And unfortunately, COVID-19 came along and locked everything down in March. So unfortunately, our ability to roll out those projects in the middle of the world's biggest pandemic in the last 100 years is a pretty difficult thing. So we're biding our time and waiting for the life to return to normal.
And these are related to your company G3. These are software projects to do with.
Some of them are, yeah. I mean, I've also been working I have friends that work in mergers and acquisitions and private equity and stuff like that I've worked on projects with before. And so some of the opportunities we've been working on have been putting deals together that, I mean, especially now that the pandemic has caused all sorts of business, value fluctuations. There are people that, have companies that are looking to sell, and there are obviously people that, have money that they can't make money in traditional ways with real estate or the stock market or things like that. So they're selling their real estate holdings, and they're selling their stocks, and they're investing in private equity and mergers and acquisitions and stuff like that. So while there are a lot of people selling, there are also a lot of people buying. So it's a pretty interesting thing.
Okay. And just one chess-related question. I mean, not a lot of business-related. So, in other sports, let's say your form and confidence, these things translate into performance. So, maybe a good baseball or a basketball player who's playing well recently, is a run of good form. The confidence itself causes a good performance. In games like chess, which are more logic driven, uh, does confidence translate into good performance? Does confidence, like having a few wins under your belt, does it really affect how you go ahead and approach the next game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, at least I think that it depends on the personalities of the people that are playing. I mean, you don't want to give away your strategy. You don't want to seem like you're enjoying winning. Too much in chess, so it's not very sportsmanlike. But I think I'm pretty stoic when it comes to playing chess, just because I don't want to, whether I'm playing poker or playing, chess or playing something else, I don't want to give away what I'm, what I'm, thinking or feeling inside. So, but I mean, it is one of those kind of things where I think if you're confident that you're doing well and you kind of let it show, I think people tend to be intimidated by that in some instances, and it kind of throws them off because again, it's about body language and it's about just general personality and attitude and things like that. So
So, so,
yeah.
and uh, and another chess related question: uh, any who, who are your personal all time favorite chess players? And yeah, I'm sure you've heard of Vishwanathan Anand. What's your opinion on him?
I haven't followed guys in a long time. So I was when I was looking up my question, I was searching for some information, some data, and I did a search just so I could reference something in my answer. I forget what it was, but I was surprised to see that of all of the rankings for the various people that play at a certain level, that Bobby Fischer was actually one of the lowest ranked guys out there. And so I'm a huge fan of Bobby Fischer's. I like what he contributed to the game of chess and things like that. But yeah. But he's also one of the lowest scoring guys, on the in terms of the ranking numbers. He's like the last guy to make the list before the list drops off. I'm like, wow, all right, well, sorry about that. I still love you, Bobby. It's all good.
And also in chess, like in business, do you often need to prepare for the opponent specifically? So in addition to your general strategy that you have for chess, but specific to a particular opponent, is there some preparation for that particular opponent?
No, I don't prep for things. I mean, I don't, I know a lot of people do. It's the same thing for, a decent like business meeting. When I'm meeting a client for the first time, or if I'm going to be in a room full of what are potential competitors that are all going for the same contract or whatever, I'll enjoy, dinner the night before. I'll enjoy a great bottle of wine. I'll get to sleep early, and things like that. I mean, really, it's just about, and that's just my personality, though. For me, it's not about preparing and kind of being sort of mentally, like, okay, I'm not, thankfully, I score in the top 1% for speed of mental processing. And so for me, my brain works in a way that works best when I don't have anything prepared, because my brain will connect all the dots more quickly than it can recall what my answer would have been if I had prepared something ahead of time.
The, and cool. And so yeah, a lot of chess is also responding to what external. I mean, what the other player does. So
That's
it's
right.
not just how good you play; it's also how well the opponent plays. So you could play very well, but if the opponent just outsmarts you and he's better than you, you're still going to lose. So.
Well, that's right, and that's why in the 12 listed things, I mean, that's one of them. It's about again, for me, I like I said when I first started the video, before you got on, I play in total chaos mode. I do everything I can to confuse and disturb or disrupt my opponents. And so because of that, they don't really know what to do with me. So forcing them to continue to change their, people have preferences for how they feel more comfortable executing a strategy in a specific fashion or with a specific set of pieces. Like, there are people like, I got to have my knights. Okay, good for you. I mean, and all you have to do is just, then when you realize what they're doing, where they're positioning and protecting and they're doing this, and you're like, okay, well, let's see if we can take out both knights and see what this guy's made of. So, it just depends, but it's,
Right.
yeah.
Right. In business, so like in chess, uh, is it often like a long-term strategy, do you think, for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, or is it often like the more short-term, immediate things that you need to do that take the focus? Is that the greater attention spender?
Yeah, so like I was discussing, typically you make plans and the plans get interrupted and reality sets in and there's new conditions and new things that happen, and so it's okay to have a long-term strategy. There's nothing wrong with a long-term strategy. The problem is that when some people have a long-term strategy and then they lose key pieces, if it's a business opportunity and you go, okay, well, I've got to, anybody who makes more than a 10-year plan, most businesses don't survive 10 years. So, don't bother making more than a 10-year plan. And there's a good chance you won't be alive or not alive, or alive as a business. You won't be around as a business in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, let alone 10 years. So why make a plan for 30 years when you don't have any idea what it's really going to be like? And so, there's no reason to do that. But 5-10 years is a good overall model. I mean, most projections, most financial projections, most plans are really kind of just wild ass guesses anyway. And so it doesn't really matter what you put down. Chances are it'll be wrong. I mean, I've never seen anybody in the thousands of opportunities that I've been, involved in, aware of, and I mean, we've done over 250 projects, over 200 projects in the last 27 years. And, I mean, I've never seen a single thing go as it was planned, even on a year by year basis. So, and it's really just a matter of what do you do to adapt. So,
One again chess related question, these days there are a lot of softwares and algorithms that get players, they can practice against the particular playing style of a particular opponent. So there'll be some software that mimics the kind of opponent you want, and by playing these people, it's almost as good as playing the real person. And so when they're actually playing the real person, they already have this run and practice of having played that person. So
yeah.
they perform much better when they actually play against them.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. I mean, so the problem though is that those AIs aren't really AI. I mean, they're just taking the highest percentage result based on all of the data that they know. So they're only as accurate as the data set you have to draw from. So if you have every game that chess person's ever played, and so that's okay, that's all you've got. That's all of the data you can. Can you really predict with simple, percentages and weighted variables and things like that? Can you really predict what that person would do? Maybe, but only within the context of that specific data set. My experience has been a little different than that, not necessarily just with chess, but with life and business and things like that. I think people grow and change, and their strategies in life and business change. And so I've seen people who you would normally think would do something like they had done before, but in reality, they've grown as an individual beyond that limitation. And so, it's dangerous to think that all future actions will be a derivative of whatever the historical probabilities are. And I think that while you can practice, I think you could practice on almost anything and have it, have it be helpful, especially in chess. But I don't think that it's necessarily a good predictor of how how that actual game is going to play out.
Okay. All right.
But no, AI is a huge opportunity. I fed in all of the data for the lottery system here in Virginia, 20 some years worth of data dating back to the 1980s. And so it was 20 or 30 years or more of data. This is several years ago. And, I fed in all the data into our AI that we use we have a predictive crime analysis model that we worked on, and we have a bunch of other predictive AI stuff that we've done. And, I fed all the numbers, all the winning numbers, and our system picked 5 of the 6 winning numbers, and so the payoff was $250,000. It missed the last one, which is the Powerball number. So, but it matched 5 of the 6 numbers based on all the probability models. Now it spit out 20 number sets, and I played all 20, and of the 20 number sets, 1 hit. And then once I went live about what I had done to do that, the lottery system then added like 11 more numbers, and which of course skewed the data. And then now the data, it'll be another 20 years before I can run enough data through the system to be able to make that calculation again. So, but even out of that, even picking 5 out of the 6 numbers in your example on chess and the AI for chess, it's not the 5 out of 6 and getting those 5 out of 6 right. That's important. But if you got the 6 out of 6 wrong, then you're still going to get crushed if you're basing your strategy on that's what you expect them to do. So, but I thought matching 5 out of 6 numbers would be worth more than $250,000. But hey, that's just me. It's just it just is what it is.
And does sport generally teach you sportsmanship? So even if you lose, you respect your opponent and.
Oh yeah. I love losing. I love losing because I learn something in the process, and I think that's as I said before, I think that's why most entrepreneurs, unfortunately, aren't any more successful, because they probably you get to a certain level of success and you don't want to lose, and so you're careful about not losing, and so I think that's probably what it comes down to in most of these cases. I enjoy losing to somebody who plays really well, and I have a lot of respect for people who play in general, and I don't mind losing. I always learn something in the process. So,
Cool. Thanks.
well, I've got 2 minutes remaining. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for the time. Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Thank you. That's another Live at 5 in the record books. I appreciate it. So, as I said before, you can go to linkedin.com/in/Gordon G. Miller. And there are new recommendations and things like that on LinkedIn. The people who've scheduled calls with me have been posting stuff up, how much they've enjoyed the calls and how beneficial it's been. If you'd like to schedule a call, you're welcome to. You can go to gordonmiller.com and click on the booking link, and you can book an opportunity to schedule a call. Almost everybody so far, I think there's only been, we've done dozens, and I think of the dozens, there's a couple of dozen people that have scheduled. I think only 1 or 2 didn't schedule a follow-up or didn't have anything really major, in terms of next steps for us to do. But everybody got value out of the call, so that's all that kind of really matters. Again, like I said before, I'm dedicating the next 20, 25 years of my life to helping people. And I love working with young entrepreneurs. My focus is on entrepreneurs age 18 to 29. And I think it's important that you get started in that early span in your life. And of course, if you're 30 through 50, I'm happy to work with you as well. I mean, it's never too early or too late to start. And I look forward to the opportunity. So, again, thank you for joining me live at 5. It's Gordon Miller. Go to gordonmiller.com and look forward to seeing you on Quora, on Instagram Live, and on YouTube Live. Go to youtube.com/Gordon Miller, and you can always catch the broadcast there as well. Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Here, I'll answer the questions in YouTube here for a second. Hang on a second. All right. There we go. All right, let me go back to the questions here on YouTube. Shark Tank lost all credibility when contestants start crying and giving a sob story and then somebody funds them. It's complete BS when someone cries and someone's out of the blue funds them. Well, Christopher, I don't know if you're still on, but hey, it's television, man. I mean, what the fuck do you want? It's not like it's real. It's a reality TV show. It still makes it a TV show. I think people have sympathy for people, but understand too that I think it's like 90% of the deals that close on TV never really close. So they can look good on TV by saying, all right, well, we'll fund you. And then ultimately under due diligence, they decide not to fund them. So don't get all carried away. It isn't like that at all. So it's actually worse by a long shot. So let's see. Since investing in index funds takes 40 years and you may be too old to enjoy what you've earned, do you still recommend starting at 18, or should I put my efforts into entrepreneurship? I have 6K. Well, Chef, if you had invested in, let me see if I can bring this up on my iPad and see where we are today. I haven't checked the stock market today, but I will do it live while we do this. And so I've been recommending the S&P 500, and over the last month, here is the S&P 500 over the last month. Now it was up and it dropped down, and then over the last week, it certainly dropped way off. It was going really well, and as on the 11th, it dropped down a little bit. But here's today's number, way up. Look at that. I mean, that's just today. So it's up 25 points today. That is, what percentage is that? Almost 1%. And, if you had invested way back when I had said that people should invest in index funds on the S&P 500 or the Dow, then you would have had an enormous rebound. I mean, I don't think I sold my position, but I think I made, 65% on my money over the course of 10 days. So it dropped off, but it's on its way back up. I mean, you can't necessarily, fault anybody for that. I mean, come on. I mean, it was profit taking and it's harvesting gains and it's a bunch of other stuff like that. So people rebalancing their portfolios, and there's some reasons for why it goes up and down. But, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. I mean, a lot of people made a lot of money in the last month playing the index funds, and, myself included, on a percentage basis. So, yeah. All right, let's see here. Let's see. Do you have a criteria when setting goals? Yeah, I don't know, Javier. I set goals. I used to set stupid monetary goals. Like I wanted to make $1 million. Then I wanted to make $10 million. Then I wanted to make, so when I look at what the total contract value is for something, and I look at, how much we we may make in profit, or I would look at our percentage of gross profit or net profit and things like that. I used to chase stupid goals like that. Now I look at things in a much different light. I mean, I think since turning 50, for me, it's been just the benefit that the opportunity has, and how I can contribute to, helping somebody achieve their goals and things like that is really kind of what I'm more focused on now. So it just is different. That's what happens when you turn 50. So, kind of sounds like a poker player playing a game that lasts years. Yeah, really. Exactly. Yeah, poker, chess, pretty much anything like that. Hey, Gordon, I'm about to finish university. Do you recommend the PhD path? And why did you decide to go for it? And did it impact meaningfully your life? So Gabriel, I'll share this with you. So I was, I did my PhD work while I was faculty at Virginia Tech. Taking classes was free, and ultimately, while I had taken my coursework, I didn't have time to do the dissertation and work for the university and run my own company and things like that. So I actually didn't finish my dissertation, didn't start it actually. I mean, I'd gotten to the point where I needed to do my dissertation and it wasn't going to happen. And so, it just wasn't enough hours in the day. And so, while I've got the coursework out of the way and it was fun sitting in on the classes and things like that, ultimately, it hasn't made a real huge difference in my life, one way or the other. And so it doesn't matter to me. I learned a great deal. I mean, I enjoyed the process. One big 200-page term paper doesn't sound like that's really the thing I would like to spend a couple of years working on anyway. I mean, I've spent the last 27 years working on stuff. So, it isn't something that, I think has been a deterrent or a hindrance one way or the other. So, but let's see what else we got here. I have to lay off some staff due to shortfall of work. What considerations should I make as I hope for business to pick up again? Well, David, I'm sorry to hear about that. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, the whole world is dealing with COVID-19 and the fallout from that. Even if you're not directly affected by it, the market and all the market conditions in the whole world is being affected by it anyway, regardless. So, first of all, it's important to know it's not your fault. I mean, there's nothing you could have done to prevent COVID or the global lockdown or anything else like that. So, in terms of letting some staff go, I always hated to let staff go, and I tried to keep them on. I even kept some people on for years, literally, while we were waiting for a follow-up contract. And I learned my lesson the hard way. So I will share this with you because I think it's important. So I had one guy that the problem with rewarding people by paying them to hang around, we use this person as a key personnel on an opportunity, and he was really kind of not doing much for 2.5 years. His salary was around $50,000. So, we're talking about $125,000 worth of out of pocket, plus benefits, plus 401k, plus taxes, plus everything else. So our cost to keep this guy around for that 2.5 years was about $200,000 out of pocket for one person, and for the 2.5 years. And so the reality with that is that once we finally won the contract, and it was going to be time for him to get some work done, he had gotten so used to not really doing much and collecting a paycheck, he went ahead and got a job somewhere else because he didn't want to actually have to work for a living. And I was like, dude, I can't believe this. I mean, I kept you on for the last 2.5 years while we didn't need you, and I didn't need to pay you. I paid you out of my own pocket. And he's like, sorry, dude, gotta bolt. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks. I appreciate that. So the problem is that, I've been very loyal to the people that have worked for me. And I found that those people, given the same circumstances, would not be loyal to you in the same fashion. So I would say that's true for about 90% of people. And so, well, I hate for anybody to lose their job, and I hate to see anybody have to cut back on staff, and it's not a fun thing to do. You just have to do it. I mean, it just in terms of giving people false hope that it may come back. I don't waste my time on that. I don't be like, oh, we hope we can hire you back in 2 months. I mean, that just isn't, it's not productive for them. It's not productive for you. It's not even true. I mean, so, chances are it'd be 6 months before you'd be in a position to really hire them back. And it doesn't really, they're not going to just hang around. Okay, well, I'll just wait by the phone. How about that? So I just don't think that's a very positive thing. I think it's important that you just, break it off and let them go and let them go do what they're supposed to do. And you'd focus on doing what you need to do for your company and the rest of the employees, and go from there. All right. So can you explain the inflation of the index funds in investing for 40 years? Well, I don't know what you mean by inflation, Sharif. They go up in value, so they're not inflated. They're increasing in value. There is inflation. I mean, the value of every dollar that it makes goes down by about between 2 and 3% a year, if it's in U.S. currency. But the return that they generate is typically at least 7%. If you had invested in the index fund of the Dow and the index fund of the S&P 500 over the last 70 years, the average return is something like 7 to 10%. Solid 7 in almost every year. But the last 2 years, since Trump was elected, 17 or 18 and 19, the Dow and the S&P 500 increased by 25% a year. So an up total of 50% in 2 years. So if you had $100,000 of accumulated value in your portfolio, that $100,000 is now worth $150,000. Well, people are all losing their minds because it dropped by 30%. Well, all that means is that 150,000 adjusted to 120,000, down 30%. And okay, so you're only up 20% instead of being up 50%, but it's still up 10% a year for those 2 years. So people don't understand how averages work, and they get all bent out of shape. I mean, the index fund of the Dow and the S&P 500 are designed to balance each other out as companies move on and off the list, as they and there are companies that moved on and off the list. I mean, airline stocks and a bunch of other stuff like that. So there's lots of people that moved on and off the list. So it's a self-balancing, self-leveling thing. 78% of all fund and money managers didn't have a net return any greater than an index fund. So if you think your super hot guy or gal that you have managing your money is better than the S&P 500, there's a good chance of 80% or so, almost 78%, that they're not, and they're killing you with a 2% fee per year on the entire portfolio, plus 20% of all profits usually, and it just it's a no-win situation. I mean, you have to get 10, 15, 20% returns in order to be able to offset the fact that you're gonna be able to do that. So anyway, I get my low battery warning. I think that's about it. We're at the 73-minute mark. Thanks to everybody. I appreciate it. As always, I love you guys, and thanks for hanging in there for the whole time, for the people that stayed on. And join me live at 5 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern time. And if any of you guys need any advice or any direct contact, you're welcome to go to gordonmiller.com and click on the booking link and book a time. And I love the calls, and if it goes well and you like it, I recommend you create a recommendation on LinkedIn. And I appreciate everybody sharing their time with me here, and I'm glad you enjoy it. And I wish all of you the best. I'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks.